All right, welcome in and welcome back to the 305 guys here on the Five Reasons YouTube channel. This is where twice a week, Alex, Donno, and I go through South Florida sports. Make sure you subscribe, turn the notifications on, because if you do that, you get access to all of our other content. That includes our Canes guys, but also Messi and company. A lot more baseball stuff we're putting on here recently. And of course, the exports of Five on the Floor, although please just download Five on the Floor from this podcast feed. Anyway, we're sponsored here by Prize Picks. Use the code 5, FIVE. It's baseball season, WNBA season. There's still plenty to play on there. So go put down the $5. You play it, they give you 50. You get a 10 for one deal for basically doing nothing. And then you can go on there and play with that $50 wherever you want until you get used to it. So check it out. It's prizepicks.com. Download it from Google Play Store, the Apple App Store, or again, prizepicks.com. Legal in the state of Florida, by the way. And we know that a lot of you are in the state of Florida. All right, Alex, let's get to it. The Miami Dolphins will release their first depth chart. Also, they're heading up to do some joint practices, have a preseason game. I've been out at camp 3 times, I believe. We've had Alfredo Arteaga out there every day, taking the pictures, listening to the interviews, watching the practices. I'll just give you my general thought, and then we'll get to the topic of today. It is a low expectation season, but it's a low expectation season on a team that does have some talent. So it's not like a lost cause low expectation season. We're like, okay, this is, when you looked at like Brian Flores' first year, you're like, okay, this team is trash. They're rebuilding intentionally. Like, they're not doing that right now. There's good players on this roster in a whole bunch of different places, but there's the lingering issues of, are they going to collapse when it matters? Is Tua going to stay healthy? The secondary has been basically put together on the fly here, very close to camp, which is what we thought would probably happen, and it has. There's some injury history from some key players like a Jalen Phillips. There's a young player playing left tackle in Patrick Paul. And there's also the Tyreek stuff, which could basically blow up at any time. So there's a lot. But I'll just ask you, do you think they fixed the majority of the issues they had last year, where, of course, that was a season with higher expectations than this and didn't go very well?
Yeah, with the notable exception of worried as anyone should be about the cornerback room. You talk about piecing together a secondary, and of all the luck, I mean, right off the gates when you start training camp, the Kader Kohu injury happens. You find out a few days later it's a season ender, and he was expected to be your best corner. So they made the Hilton and the Jack Jones signings, which were both relatively cheap, but sometimes you get what you pay for when you're paying 1.1 and 1.2 million for these contracts. So I am legitimately worried about the defensive secondary. However, as you brought up, areas that the Dolphins have needed to fix some on the field and off the field stuff. On the field, of course, tougher at the point of attack, line of scrimmage on both sides. I'm really encouraged by the way Patrick Paul has practiced at left tackle. Obviously Miami had, an all-pro caliber left tackle for the past several seasons, but the caveat there was Teron Armstead had to be healthy, and he just wasn't healthy very often. And, Paul looks like he learned a lot from Armstead last year and is ready to hit the ground running as Miami's starting left tackle. At least like they have pieced together what could be a decent overall offensive line this year. Defensive line, of course, there have been long-term health concerns when you think about guys like Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips. But if you can keep that group healthy, and thank God the Dolphins were able to come to that new deal with Zach Sealer, which is also important not only to lock up one of your more consistent players to a long-term deal, but also, create some cap savings, we think, in the process. So that was big. So those are two areas. Those are on the field areas. And off the field area, which we're still in a wait and see with this, but there was obviously, and there has been, a culture problem with this team for the last couple of years. And we have come to believe that apparently Jalen Ramsey was a big part of that. So I think trading him, despite his all-pro potential at his position, could end up being an addition by subtraction in some ways. My big question is Tyreek Hill, has he actually turned over this like new leaf that he says he's saying all the right things, but do you believe the guy? Is he really deferring to Tua now as like the leader and the alpha? But at this point, it seems like there's a little bit more off the field locker room harmony, which I think was something that was affecting this team last year in a negative way, why they underachieved so much. So when it comes to that stuff, I'm feeling about as good as you can feel in training camp with preseason about to get underway. And you talk about the expectations, Ethan. Not only is it is it like a lower expectation year? But I look at this like a course correction year. It's obviously not a blow it up and rebuild type of year, but I think that the Dolphins reached a fork in the road where they realize a lot of what they've been doing the last couple of years just hasn't been working. Now they are still going about this course correction with the same general manager and the same head coach. This is going to be put up or shut up for Chris Greer, and maybe for Chris Greer, but for Mike McDaniel, certainly
GM for life, Alex. Come on.
GM for life. But no, I think it's an exciting season coming up for those reasons. My expectations are definitely lower because the past few years I've been win a playoff game or bust. Now this year I'm like, hey, do you think we can get into the playoffs? Like that's kind of where I'm at. But I also want to see progress from some of these younger players while we go on that journey.
Yeah, it does feel like a shift on the fly. It does feel like what they're trying to do is kind of, as you said, change the culture, change the foundation so that it's not quite so creaky. But ultimately, if this team is going to win more games than many expect, they're going to have some of their position groups who have potential to be above average actually achieve that. And I start with two. Okay. To me, this is two. We talk a lot about the troubles in the secondary and everything. The Kohu thing is big because if you could have added these other guys while he was still healthy, that's a different situation. But you didn't. You have added Minka, provided that he gets back to his form. He's more no nonsense than Jalen was. So that could help the secondary there. Javon Holland didn't make a play all last year after the first game, so it can't be any worse. I like the linebacker group quite a bit. I think it's improved from where it's been. But ultimately, two things, okay, if they're going to reach a higher upside. One is very simple. Two has got to play 15 plus games and play at an elite level. Now, some of that is others will contribute to that. Does Devon Achane take the pressure off him? Or maybe it's Jalen Wright. Does Hill play, back to something close to his level from 2 seasons ago? I'm not expecting 2 seasons ago, but got to be better than last year. Also, did they get anything out of Darren Waller so that he has a security blanket? We haven't seen that yet, so we don't know. Although Tyreek Hill mentioned him as the guy who's going to be the third guy in terms of the passing game, he hasn't even been on the field. So that's going to, it looks thin. So that's going to take some time. And then you mentioned Patrick Paul, who's kind of the key to this in terms of keeping Tua upright, even though he's on the other side, obviously. But that's the first thing. Like, can Tua play 15 games and play an elite level? Because that can cover up a lot of stuff if he has the opportunity. The other is the pass rush. The pass rush has a chance, if all of these guys actually stay healthy, to be pretty dominant. Okay, Phillips, Chubb, Chop. You have Sealer pushing from the inside. Like, you have linebackers who can make plays. Like, that pass rush has a chance to be good. Unless teams just figure out we're going to get the ball out quickly because the corners can't guard at the line of scrimmage, and we're going to allow our guys to make plays in the flat, and maybe not so much down the field, but we're going to basically chew you up going down the field, okay, as you are trying to get to the passer, and you just can't because we're getting the ball out too quick. That is a concern of mine. If those two areas, Tua and the pass rush, if those are great and the other things are not awful, they could get to 10 wins. I think that's possible. I don't see much beyond that. If neither of those areas are elite, this is a 5 or 6 win team, I think. And I guess on the other side, we'll get to which. I want to ask you this question as we head in, and we're going to get into the depth chart a little bit. Which of those two things do you think has a better chance under the circumstances? Health concerns with both. To be elite. Before we do, we want to mention Prize Picks. Use the code 5FIVE. Put down your $5. You get 50 to play right away. Mention it all the time. You can see Yuri Perez is on there right now. You want to play the Marlins. Of course, the Marlins playing around 500 now. And they're in Atlanta playing a bad Braves team. You can play that. And also plenty to play. Everybody knows the names of the WNBA players now. So you can just go scan them right there and make your decisions. Obviously, someone's very closely associated with Bam Adebayo has been playing at a high level lately. So check out Miss Wilson. But play it using the code 5FIVE. Put down the 5. Get your 50 to play right away. All right, so to that question, before we get quickly to the depth chart here, which of those areas, Tua leading a passing attack that is back in the top, it was in the top 5. I mean, last year wasn't. Back a top 10 passing attack, Tua leading that, or the pass rush? Which do you give a better chance to be elite?
Oh my gosh. It's I'm going to say the pass rush because when I talk about taking the leap of faith of Tua being healthy for more than 15 games, that's happened one time in the past 5 seasons. And now I will say that at least the Dolphins are putting a lot more effort into the backup quarterback situation this year. I mean, it was when we were doing this show last year, we saw this coming from 10 miles away, even before the preseason started. Like, what are they doing at backup quarterback? Zach Wilson, of course, should be a steadier hand. And, I know Quinn Ewers has been one of the stories of camp. It seems like a very high upside guy that they're going to keep as a third quarterback and could have a bright future in the NFL. So I'm going to say the pass rush and the front seven in general, because I think the linebackers are part of that. And I'm pretty bullish on that unit this year. And, how can I not feel good about Chop with the second half of the season he had last year? And, again, Chubb and Phillips, if they can stay healthy, and Sealer can provide pressure from the inside. And so I'm going to say that could be your meal ticket. And I think that's going to be steadier. Of course, as the Dolphins showed 2 years ago when it was the greatest show on natural grass, if Tua can stay healthy, and if Tyreek Hill, like you said, can get back to close to what he was 2 years ago, and Jalen Waddle continues to take steps forward, and Malik Washington, they've got some other weapons in that passing game, then obviously there's really high potential, especially in a Mike McDaniel offense. I just think the pass rush in the front seven could be steadier. Yeah, I trust Anthony Weaver. I trust these guys if they can stay healthy. So I'm going to go with the pass rush. And wouldn't that be refreshing if that can become, your bread and butter, and you're not having to score 70 points, to win a game like you put up a couple of years ago. So I'm going to go with the pass rush.
I agree with you. And I agree with you in part because I don't trust the compliments around Tua enough. Yeah. And it's not just the offensive line now, but it's Tyreek. And then I just don't trust Waddle to stay healthy. And they don't, Jonnu Smith popped last year. Now you're expecting Waller to do the same. I like Westbrook on the outside. I think that will help, particularly near the red zone. Tua's not really had a target like that, at least at receiver. But they need to get they need to get all of those guys going at the same time. I'm not exactly sure that's going to be the case, and I don't know necessarily that I trust McDaniel more than I do Weaver. So that's why I would lean towards the pass rush. The question becomes which is more important. I think more people would say it's the Tua part because, but again, you could lean either way there. All right, let's take a look at the depth chart. If you have it, was there anything sometimes we make too much of this in game one, right? And there's going to be other decisions that are made. And sometimes the coaches kind of hide decisions, not just from the media, but also from their own players, because they don't want to be in a situation where guys feel like they've been handed something. Just let's take a look at the offense, though. I don't think there's huge surprises here. I look at the starting group. They have Darren Waller as the starting tight end. That's how much you're counting on him right now. No surprise in terms of the tackles. Starting center, provided the Brewer's healthy. The question was, the rookie or Daniels, who was going to be on which side. Looks like they've settled on this for now. Liam is not a starter. I think people will be happy about that. Malik Washington stepped up a little bit last year. No surprise that he's kind of the third or fourth receiver. We talked about Zach Wilson. And then on the defensive side, I don't really see a surprise there. Kenneth Grant, I guess you'd want him to kind of emerge as the season goes on. But otherwise, and Storm Duck is a starting corner, which
that was the one
has been hitting on.
Yeah. Those surprised, but with the state of the cornerback room, I guess nothing should surprise me. But yeah, you got Storm Duck, Sheffield, not surprising, and Hilton in the nickel starting there, which is not surprising. And yeah, I'll go and going back, you talked about the guards. To me, it makes sense to have Jonah, the rookie, starting on the left side because that's not Tua's blind side. I guess is why that would make sense to me to have Daniels, the veteran, on the other side. But yeah, no, nothing. Honestly, nothing too surprising there. Yeah, I know running back is one of the deeper spots in my opinion, but the depth chart doesn't surprise me. I'll see if Ollie Gordon, who I was really bullish on at Oklahoma State, who was even he was a lot better his second to last year than he was the last year, if he can move up from the fourth spot. But obviously Achane being the starter, Wright being the backup, no surprise there.
Yeah, and Ollie Gordon's a guy I think you'll get some time as you go on. That's the kind of competition that they talk about Madison, but you want Gordon ultimately to win it. You want, in most of these cases, you want the young player to eventually step up and take the spot. You mentioned Jack Jones, not currently listed as a starter. he has the talent to be. Right now, he's
Right.
behind Sheffield. Seems like they're giving the young guys who've been here the entire time at least the benefit of the doubt as this begins, and and then kind of see where it goes from there. I mean, there's some other players who are in their second year. We need to see something. Mo Kamara is one of them. Now, I don't know how many snaps he's going to get. He may be inactive a lot because if Chubb and help. But look, it's first thing. It's positive to see both Chubb and Jalen Phillips in the starting front seven coming off of injuries. That is positive. So their injury luck, with the exception of Kohu, who obviously would have helped right now, has been pretty good. And yeah, I agree with Wilfred here. The Malik Washington is a guy to watch. You saw him get more confidence, and also McDaniel get more confidence in him as the season went on last year. So I would anticipate that he's going to get some looks. They will go 3 wide a lot. I don't know that they have enough tight ends. Unless they're going with straight run formation sets, they have enough tight ends right now that you can trust as pass catchers. Because I don't know guys when they're retired for a year. There's very few. I mean, Gronk could do it, right? But there's very few examples of guys, even someone as talented as Waller has been, who come back and really give you a lot of production. I mean, that's a big question mark. If you look at this roster right now, I mean, there's no question, right? The biggest issue is corner, right? Like that's the biggest concern.
Yeah, because it was already shamefully shallow before the Kohu injury, and like you mentioned signing those other guys. They signed Hilton and Jones. Well, actually, I think it was after the Kohu. I was gonna say it was before the Kohu injury. I think it was after. It was before we knew it was a season.
Before we knew, I was actually there that day. Yeah, Kohu got hurt, and then Hilton was already. They were visiting the facility. And they made the decision. They'd already brought in Jack Jones, and I think if there was any question about signing Hilton at that point, like we were like, okay, maybe they're adding him to, because they didn't know Kohu was going to get hurt in advance, obviously. So they were looking at Hilton anyway, and putting Kohu outside, and that didn't work out. All right, so we'll get to more Dolphins conversation next week. Obviously, they're going to be in focus here as they're competing up in Chicago this week, and then they get the reps with Detroit, I believe, after that. Is that correct? Yeah, I think it's
you got you got to get out of these joint practices healthy, because it's hard enough when it's Dolphin on Dolphin to avoid these injuries. Now you're going to be going up against Chicago and Detroit.
Guys who don't care about hurting you. Yeah, I see how this works out. All right, Alex, appreciate it. Again, check out all of his work on Locked On Canes. We got to promote that as well. Canes are in training camp themselves here. And also we'll have plenty of – this is the slow heat month, everybody, but we're still doing an episode a day because I'm contractually obligated to talk about them 24/7. Appreciate you guys. Use the code 5 at PrizePicks.